Rolex Daytona, the unicorn. Among the countless Rolex Daytonas that define luxury and precision, one stands alone in absolute rarity. The Rolex Daytona Unicorn. Created in the 1970s, this watch shattered every rule in Rolex's playbook. Daytonas of that era were made for racers, steel or yellow gold, tough, practical, functional. Yet this one emerged from the Geneva workshops in solid white gold, a configuration Rolex never officially offered for the manual wind Daytona. For years, collectors whispered about a rumor that such a piece might exist. Then, decades later, that myth became reality. The watch belonged to John Goldberger, one of the most respected Rolex historians in the world, a man with access to the brand's deepest archives. The moment he revealed it, the collecting world froze. The contrast of its bark-finished white gold bracelet against the black dial made it otherworldly. Every detail felt intentional. The case reference 6265, the pump pushers, and the understated dial that concealed the most extravagant material choice imaginable. Beyond its metal, the unicorn represents the soul of vintage Rolex. Function elevated into status, tool transformed into treasure. It's not simply a chronograph, it's the brand's quiet rebellion against its own conservatism. And when Goldberger decided to auction it, he chose to donate every cent to charity, making the sale as noble as the watch itself. The bidding at Phillips Geneva in 2018 was electric. Collectors understood they were witnessing history, a watch that existed outside catalogs, outside logic. When the hammer finally fell, it became one of the most expensive Rolexes ever sold. Sold at auction by Phillips Geneva in 2018 for $5.9 million. Proceeds went to charity, and the current owner remains anonymous. Patek Philippe, reference 2523, World Time. In the world of high horology, few complications capture the romance of travel quite like the Patek Philippe reference 2523 World Time. This masterpiece from the early 1950s isn't just a watch. It's a window into an age when international flight was new, and the idea of tracking multiple time zones felt like magic. The watch's dial displays every major city on Earth around its perimeter, and in the center, an intricate cloisonné enamel map of the world shimmers under the crystal. Tiny continents, formed by molten enamel and gold wire. The example that sold for $8.9 million stands as one of Patek's rarest. Its dial portrays Eurasia in stunning detail, a combination of turquoise oceans, amber deserts, and deep green forests, the kind of artistry that could only have been achieved by human hands using a brush finer than a hair. Only a handful of these enamel dial world time watches were ever made, and each represents the pinnacle of Patek's mid-century craftsmanship. Beyond its beauty, the 2523 embodies the spirit of Patek Philippe itself, refinement, discretion, and near-obsessive perfectionism. Inside beats the manually wound caliber 12400 HU, a movement developed in collaboration with Louis Cotier, the genius who invented the world time mechanism still used today. To own one isn't just to own a watch, it's to hold the origin story of modern travel timepieces. When this particular example surfaced at Christie's Geneva in 2019, collectors already knew they were bidding on a legend. It wasn't just rare, it was museum grade. As the gavel came down, applause followed, even in the reserved world of watch auctions. Sold at auction by Christie's Geneva in 2019 for $8.9 million. Buyer undisclosed, believed to be a major private collector. Patek Philippe reference 2499, Eric Clapton. If there were ever a watch that merged the worlds of artistry, celebrity, and pure horological perfection, it would be the Patek Philippe reference 2499, Eric Clapton. This model already stands among the holy grails of watchmaking, a perpetual calendar chronograph that, for decades, has symbolized Patek Philippe's genius for mechanical beauty. But this one carried a story that transcended craftsmanship. It had belonged to Eric Clapton, the rock legend, guitarist, and known watch connoisseur whose taste was as refined as his music was timeless. Produced in the early 1980s, this reference was crafted in platinum, a material Patek rarely used for such complicated pieces at the time. Most 2499s were made in yellow or rose gold, but platinum was reserved for the brand's most exclusive clients, often under special commission. Clapton's example was one of only two known in this metal. Its cool gray tone, combined with the perfectly symmetrical dial layout, moon phase at 6, day and month at 12, gave it an aura of understatement. Clapton reportedly purchased it in the 1980s, keeping it quietly within his collection for years before it resurfaced at auction. The watch was as close to flawless as a vintage complication could be. Razor-sharp case edges, immaculate dial, untouched movement. When Christie's Geneva announced its sale in 2012, it was already a headline event. Bidders from around the world competed not only for one of the rarest Pateks ever made, but for a piece of music history attached to it. The atmosphere in the room was electric. As the numbers climbed, it became clear that this wasn't a battle for a timepiece. It was a battle for immortality. Sold at auction by Christie's Geneva in 2012 for $11 million. Formerly owned by Eric Clapton, current ownership undisclosed. The Patek Philippe reference. 1518 in stainless steel represents one of those rare intersections in history when restraint becomes the ultimate luxury. Introduced in 1941, the 1518 was the world's first serially produced perpetual calendar chronograph, a technical triumph that combined elegance with mechanical innovation. Most were crafted in yellow or rose gold, befitting the tastes of the era's elite. But a small handful, only 4 pieces, were created in stainless steel, a decision so unorthodox for Patek at the time that it seemed almost rebellious. In the 1940s, steel was not a luxury material. It was practical, everyday, even modest. Yet here was the most complicated wristwatch on Earth, cased in the same metal as a field watch. That contrast fascinated collectors for decades. The idea that one of Patek's greatest achievements was executed in such an unassuming material made it a symbol of quiet power. Sophistication without flash. When the steel 1518 surfaced at Philips Geneva in 2016, it sent shockwaves through the watch community. Collectors had dreamed of owning one, but few had ever even seen one in person. The bidding war was intense, with phone lines from every continent locked in a frenzy. The watch was immaculate, its silver dial aged perfectly, the movement untouched, the case edges sharp enough to cut light. Beyond the numbers, the sale cemented the 1518 status as a bridge between the old world of bespoke craftsmanship and the modern era of collecting. It was no longer just a watch. It was a manifesto of rarity, history, and purpose. Sold at auction by Philips Geneva in 2016 for $11.1 million. Buyer undisclosed. One of only 4 known examples in existence. Paul Newman's Rolex Daytona. There are watches that define luxury, and then there are watches that define culture. The Paul Newman's Rolex Daytona sits in that rare space where horology meets Hollywood, motorsport, and myth. It's not merely a timepiece, it's the most famous wristwatch ever worn. In the 1960s, actor and race car driver Paul Newman received a Rolex Cosmograph Daytona from his wife Joanne Woodward. She had the case back engraved with 3 simple words: "Drive carefully, me." Those words transformed an ordinary chronograph into a talisman. He wore it every day, at movie sets, racetracks, and photo shoots, and those images circulated around the world. The once unsold exotic dial version of the Daytona became iconic because of him, earning its now legendary nickname, the Paul Newman. For decades, collectors hunted for his actual watch, unsure if it still existed. Then, in 2017, the original piece, his personal Daytona, reference 6239, resurfaced. The watch had been gifted by Newman to his daughter's boyfriend in the 1980s, who kept it safely tucked away for years. When Philips announced it would be auctioned in New York, the watch world stopped. What followed was less an auction and more a global event. Every collector, journalist, and celebrity tuned in to see what number history would assign to the world's most famous wristwatch. Within 12 minutes, the bids had skyrocketed past every record in Rolex history. The hammer fell to applause that echoed through the room, a rare sound at an auction. Sold at auction by Philips New York in 2017 for $17.8 million. Proceeds went to charity. The buyer chose to remain private. Jacob & Co. Billionaire Watch. In a world obsessed with understatement, the Jacob & Co. Billionaire Watch exists unapologetically on the other end of the spectrum. It's loud, unapologetic, and glittering proof that sometimes excess is the point. Created by Jacob Arabo, the designer-entrepreneur who turned hip-hop's jewelry aesthetic into a global luxury language, this piece blurs the line between high horology and haute joaillerie. At first glance, it doesn't even look like a watch. It looks like a diamond bracelet with a pulse. Every inch of the case and bracelet is invisibly set with 260 carats of emerald-cut diamonds, each one carefully matched for size, color, and brilliance. The stones flow seamlessly from link to link, creating a continuous surface of ice. Yet, hidden beneath all that sparkle beats a serious piece of watchmaking, a manually wound skeletonized tourbillon movement that floats in the center like a heartbeat inside a glacier. The idea behind the Billionaire watch was simple: make the most extravagant, wearable diamond watch ever. Jacob didn't build it for subtlety, he built it for spectacle. It became a statement of ultimate achievement. And in 2018, boxing legend Floyd Mayweather bought one, flaunting it on social media and red carpets alike. He called it the Billionaire's watch, and the name stuck. Unlike the other pieces on this list, this wasn't an auction relic. It was sold brand new, straight from Jacob & Co.'s Geneva atelier, as an object of desire for the ultra-rich. It represents modern wealth's obsession with visibility. Luxury not whispered, but shouted in diamonds. Sold through private retail by Jacob & Co. for $18 million. Purchased directly by Floyd Mayweather, who remains its confirmed owner. Patek Philippe, Henry Graves. Super complication. Before the wristwatch ruled the world, the pocket watch was the ultimate symbol of status and intellect, and none has ever rivaled the legend of the Patek Philippe Henry Graves super complication, the masterpiece that defined 20th century watchmaking. Commissioned in 1925 by New York banker Henry Graves Jr., this extraordinary timepiece wasn't built to tell time. It was built to prove who could own the most complicated watch on Earth. Graves was competing quietly with automobile magnate James Ward Packard in what collectors now call the Great Watchmaking Duel. His challenge to Patek Philippe was simple: outdo everyone. It took Patek's best craftsman 8 years to complete. When it was finished in 1933, the result was beyond comprehension: a 14-karat gold pocket watch with 24 complications, including a perpetual calendar, moon phase display, sunrise and sunset times for New York City, and even a celestial map of the night sky above Graves' Manhattan home. Every gear, spring, and wheel was made by hand, with no computers, no modern machinery, only patience and perfectionism. The super complication represented the highest point of pre-war horology. It wasn't just a watch, it was a statement about human craftsmanship before the age of technology. It passed through the hands of several collectors and spent years in museums before reappearing at Sotheby's Geneva in 2014, where anticipation was at fever pitch. When the auctioneer's hammer finally fell, it set a new world record for any timepiece ever sold. Sold at auction by Sotheby's Geneva in 2014 for $24 million. Originally commissioned by Henry Graves Jr., current owner undisclosed, believed to be a private collector in the Middle East. Chopard 201-karat watch. If there was ever a watch that blurred the line between timekeeping and sculpture, it's the Chopard 201-karat watch. This creation isn't just a watch, it's a jewelry masterpiece, a dazzling explosion of light designed to overwhelm the senses. Where most luxury watches whisper elegance, this one sings in color and brilliance. Unveiled in the early 2000s, the 201-karat watch was a declaration from Chopard's haute joaillerie division that it could outshine even the most extravagant jewelry maisons. The centerpiece of the design features 3 heart-shaped diamonds, one pink weighing 15 carats, one blue weighing 12 carats, and one white weighing 11 carats, set around a delicate spring mechanism that blooms open to reveal a tiny yellow diamond watch face beneath. Surrounding those are clusters of smaller white, yellow, and canary diamonds that bring the total weight to a staggering 201 carats. This isn't a timepiece made to be worn daily. It's a wearable monument to wealth. Every diamond was individually cut, graded, and arranged in a perfectly symmetrical pattern, requiring months of assembly by Chopard's master gemsetters. The movement inside is almost secondary, a discreet reminder that yes, it does tell time, though telling time was never really the point. Pieces like this live in vaults, not display cases. It's rumored to have been commissioned by a Middle Eastern client who wanted a singular statement, something no museum, no royal family, and no rival collector could match. Sold in a private transaction for $25 million. Believed to remain in a private collection in the Middle East. Exact ownership never publicly disclosed. Patek Philippe, Grandmaster Chime reference, 6300A. When it comes to modern horology, nothing rivals the technological poetry of the Patek Philippe Grandmaster Chime ref. 6300A. Created in 2019 as a one-off for the Only Watch charity auction, it wasn't just another limited edition. It was a message from Patek to the world that true craftsmanship still has no equal and no limit. The Grandmaster Chime already stood as Patek's most complex wristwatch ever made, boasting 20 complications, including a grand and petite sonnerie, a min repeater, a perpetual calendar, and an acoustic alarm that chimes the exact time. But this particular version, reference 6300A, was unique. For the first time, Patek cased such a masterpiece in stainless steel, a material rarely, if ever, used for their grand complications. The reason? To make it unmistakably one of one. It featured a reversible case that could flip between 2 dials, one opaline salmon-colored face displaying the time and chiming functions, and another black dial showing the perpetual calendar. Around the edge, the engraving read, "The Only One." That wasn't marketing, it was literal truth. Sold at auction by Christie's Geneva for the only watch charity in 2019 for $31 million. The buyer remains anonymous. All proceeds donated to medical research. Graff diamonds. Hallucination. There are expensive watches, there are record-breaking watches, and then there's the Graff diamonds Hallucination. A creation so audacious, so drenched in rarity, that it stands entirely alone, not in horology, but in art itself. When Lawrence Graff unveiled it at Baselworld in 2014, the room fell silent. In a world accustomed to superlatives, the Hallucination was something else, a watch that redefined what value could mean. It wasn't built for telling time, it was built to mesmerize. At first glance, it looked more like a crown forged for a queen than a watch. Yet, at its heart, beneath hundreds of carats of diamonds, sat a small quartz dial, modest, almost hidden, as though time itself was bowing to the craftsmanship surrounding it. The bracelet is crafted entirely from platinum, sculpted into a flowing canvas of light. Set into it are 110 carats of the rarest fancy-colored diamonds ever assembled. Pinks as vivid as rose petals, blues as deep as tropical seas, and greens that glow like spring leaves after rain. Each stone was hand-selected from Graff's personal collection, diamonds he'd spent a lifetime gathering. Some took decades to acquire, others came from mines long since closed. The stones are cut into a variety of shapes: heart, marquise, pear, emerald, and radiant, then placed in a mosaic pattern so intricate that it blurs the line between geometry and nature. The surface seems alive, constantly shifting as it catches light. Every tiny reflection reveals another spectrum, another fire. It's hypnotic, a literal hallucination, just as its name suggests. This watch isn't about horology, it's about obsession, about one man's lifelong pursuit of perfection in gemology. Lawrence Graff himself once said, "The Hallucination is a celebration of the diamond, our passion, and our expertise." In truth, it's a celebration of the impossible, proof that in the uppermost echelons of luxury, imagination itself becomes a currency. Unlike the mechanical masterpieces from Patek Philippe or Rolex that draw their prestige from history and engineering, the Hallucination's power lies in its raw elemental beauty. It's nature's rarest phenomena, sculpted into wearable form. The diamonds themselves are priceless. No two could ever be sourced again in identical hue or size. To recreate this watch today would be virtually impossible, even with unlimited money. It's believed that only a handful of people in the world have ever held the Hallucination in person. For security, it travels under guard, appearing only at select Graff showcases or exhibitions. Some insiders claim it remains in Lawrence Graff's personal collection, a piece too precious to sell. Others whisper it was discreetly purchased by a long-standing client, someone whose name will never be revealed. But in truth, ownership doesn't matter. The Hallucination's real home is in legend, in conversations about what humanity can create when art, time, and fortune collide. Sold as a private retail creation by Graff Diamonds for $55 million, believed to remain either in Lawrence Graff's personal collection or that of a private client. Ownership undisclosed.